It's small enough to fit between your fingertips, yet powerful enough to carry the weight of an entire nation's history. It's been slipped into millions of pockets, rattled in countless tills, and exchanged for everything from a pint of milk to priceless memories. This is the story of the £1 coin. The £1 coin is more than just a chunk of metal. It's an icon, a physical promise that the value you hold in your hand means something, a bridge between people and the economy, between tradition and modernity. But like any national symbol, it didn't appear overnight. Its story stretches back more than 1,000 years, before the coin itself even existed. We'll travel through medieval England, where the word pound didn't mean a coin at all, but a unit of account based on weight. We'll see how centuries of kings, queens, merchants, and mints shaped the currency we know today. We'll stand in the economic storm of the early 1980s, when Britain took the bold step of replacing the £1 banknote with a coin. We'll witness the backlash, the acceptance, and the eventual affection the public developed for this little disc of metal. And we'll uncover the moments when the £1 coin almost lost the public's trust, when counterfeiters flooded the streets with millions of fakes, and the nation demanded change. From its birth in 1983, through its evolution, and to its radical redesign in 2017, the £1 coin has been a silent witness to Britain's changing face. It has passed through the hands of prime ministers and postmen, students and soldiers, shopkeepers and schoolchildren. Each exchange tells a story of work, trade, and the small moments that make up everyday life. Before the pound coin existed, before the gleam of gold or the shimmer of nickel brass, there was an idea, not a coin in the hand, but a unit of value, a measure of trust, and a symbol of stability. The story begins over 1,200 years ago, in Anglo-Saxon England. The word pound comes from the Latin libra pondo, literally, a pound by weight. In those days, the pound didn't mean a specific coin. Instead, it referred to the value of a full pound of silver. That pound of silver could be divided into 240 silver pennies, the currency of the day. This is why, even centuries later, Britain's pre-decimal currency system was based on 240 pence to the pound. The earliest English pennies were introduced under King Offa of Mercia in the late 8th century, struck from nearly pure silver. These coins were tiny, barely larger than a thumbnail, but they were the backbone of commerce. Over the centuries, the pound sterling survived invasions, dynastic changes, and the slow evolution of England into a unified kingdom. By the time of the Norman conquest in 1066, the silver penny remained the standard, and the pound was still an accounting measure, not something you could hold. To hold a pound's worth of currency in your hand would have meant carrying hundreds of small silver coins, jingling together in a leather pouch. In the 14th century, gold began to appear in English currency. The gold noble was introduced, later followed by the sovereign. These coins were worth far more than the humble penny, and for the first time, wealth could be concentrated into fewer, more valuable pieces of metal. Still, the term pound sterling persisted. It was the standard unit of account used in ledgers, contracts, and royal decrees. By the 16th and 17th centuries, Britain's coinage system had grown complex. There were shillings, crowns, guineas, and halfpennies, each with its own metal composition and value. And yet, still no £1 coin. If you wanted a pound's worth of money, you might have used a gold sovereign worth £1, or 20 shillings, or 240 pennies, but never a dedicated £1 coin in the form we know today. The Bank of England, founded in 1694, began issuing £1 banknotes in the late 18th century. For many people, this was the first time the pound existed as a single, physical object, even if it was just ink on paper. These early notes were hand-signed and could be exchanged for gold on demand. They became increasingly popular through the 19th century, especially as Britain's Industrial Revolution accelerated. By the early 20th century, the £1 banknote had become familiar, practical, and, for most, far preferable to carrying around heavy coins. It would take another 80 years before the idea of a £1 coin would resurface, and when it did, it would not be to add the pound, in its many forms, from silver weight, to gold sovereign, to paper note, was a survivor. But survival in the modern age would demand adaptation. And in the early 1980s, Britain's leaders would decide it was time for a transformation, one that would place the pound back into the palm of the nation's hand. By the dawn of the 1980s, Britain was a nation in transition. Economic challenges, political shifts, and a rapidly changing world meant that even the smallest details of daily life, including the coins and notes in your pocket, were under review. For generations, the £1 banknote had been part of everyday life. It was lightweight, familiar, and easy to carry. But by the late 1970s, a problem was becoming impossible to ignore. Banknotes simply didn't last. A paper £1 note had an average lifespan of just 9 months before it became too worn or soiled to be used. The Bank of England was spending millions each year replacing them. In contrast, coins, though heavier and costlier to produce initially, could last decades. Durability meant savings. And in an era of economic belt-tightening, savings were essential. The decision, the idea of a £1 coin, wasn't entirely new. Scotland had struck a £1 coin back in the 16th century, though it was quickly abandoned. In modern Britain, the first serious discussions about replacing the £1 note with a coin began in the late 1970s, driven by two forces. 1. Economics, reducing the cost of currency replacement. 2. Practicality. A coin could be more secure against counterfeiting than a fragile note. After years of debate, the government announced that a new £1 coin would be introduced in 1983. It would be round, nickel brass, and slightly thicker and heavier than other coins, designed to stand out in the hand and the pocket. Public reaction. When the announcement came, reactions were mixed. Some welcomed the change, seeing the coin as modern and efficient. Others bristled at the thought of losing the paper note they'd known all their lives. The Royal Mint launched a public awareness campaign, explaining the benefits of the coin and featuring its first design, the Royal Coat of Arms. The coin was large, golden in colour, and carried the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. It was a bold move, one that touched nearly every Briton's daily life. Every till had to be recalibrated, every vending machine updated, every habit adjusted. The transition wasn't without resistance. Some retailers complained about machine upgrades. Others said the coin was too similar in size to foreign currency, risking confusion. And, inevitably, people hoarded the last £1 notes as souvenirs. But the change was irreversible. By the mid-1980s, the pound coin had become a fixture of British currency, a physical embodiment of value that was here to stay, at least in some form. But as the pound coin settled into the nation's pockets, another part of its identity began to take shape, one defined, not by politics or economics, but by art, heritage, and the symbols of the United Kingdom itself. A coin is more than currency. It is a canvas, small, circular, and enduring, on which a nation tells its story. The £1 coin would become one of Britain's most intimate showcases of heritage, culture, and unity. When the £1 coin debuted in 1983, its reverse design was the Royal Coat of Arms, a symbol representing the authority and history of the United Kingdom. The obverse carried the familiar profile of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, which had already appeared on British coins since 1968. But the Royal Mint quickly realised something. This new coin could do more than just carry a fixed design. It could rotate through different emblems, each representing a part of the United Kingdom, reinforcing a sense of shared identity while celebrating diversity. In 1984, the first of these alternate designs appeared, the Scottish thistle, symbolising Scotland's rugged resilience and beauty. The next year, it was the Welsh leek, a national emblem with roots in ancient legend. England's turn brought the oak tree, a timeless symbol of strength. Northern Ireland was honoured with the flax plant, a nod to its rich linen-producing heritage. Each design was a history lesson in miniature, a reminder of the Union's 4 nations and the pride each carried in its own symbols. Over the years, artists were invited to reinterpret these emblems in fresh styles. Some designs were bold and modern, others leaned into traditional heraldry. By the 2000s, The £1 coin became a platform for even more variety. The Bridges series celebrated iconic engineering feats from across the UK, from the elegant Menai suspension bridge in Wales to the majestic Forth Bridge in Scotland. Collector's appeal. The rotating design sparked something unexpected: collectability. Britons began setting aside unusual coins, trading them, and even creating personal mini-museums of pound coins in jars and drawers. Some designs were minted in smaller quantities, making them more sought after. The rarest became almost legendary among casual. The Royal Mint worked closely with artists, historians, and engravers to ensure each design was accurate and meaningful. Every detail, from the curve of a thistle leaf to the texture of a Bridges stonework, had to survive the transition from sketch to metal. To design a coin is to work within the world's smallest art gallery. Knowing your work will be seen by millions every day, yet rarely noticed for more than a second. By the early 2010s, the pound coin had carried dozens of designs, each one a reflection of the United Kingdom's geography, history, and character. But while its designs celebrated unity and pride, an invisible threat was quietly undermining the public's trust in the coin itself. That threat was not economic recession, nor political scandal, but a flood of convincing fakes that would push the pound coin to the brink. For a coin to survive, it must be more than metal. It must carry trust. And in the case of the £1 coin, that trust was about to be tested like never before. The first signs. By the late 1990s, whispers began circulating among shopkeepers and bank staff. Some £1 coins didn't feel right. The design seemed a little off, the Queen's portrait slightly misaligned, the lettering uneven, the colour not quite golden enough. At first, these were dismissed as harmless curiosities, perhaps coins, worn down by years of use. But as reports grew, the truth emerged. Counterfeit £1 coins were entering circulation in unprecedented. Counterfeiters had realised something critical. The £1 coin, despite being made from nickel brass and struck with precision, wasn't especially difficult to imitate with the right equipment. A convincing fake could be produced cheaply, and, crucially, it could be spent without much scrutiny. The scale of the problem. By the mid-2000s, the situation had escalated to alarming levels. The Royal Mint estimated that more than 3% of all £1 coins in circulation were fake. That's over 45 million. Counterfeit coins jangling in tills, wallets, and purses across the country. Some unofficial estimates place the number even higher, suggesting that in certain regions, 1 in every 20 coins was forged. A coin is a silent contract between the state and its people, that the value it claims is the value it holds. When that contract is broken, confidence begins to crumble. Everyday impact. For shopkeepers, the crisis meant losses. Counterfeit coins couldn't be deposited at the bank, and refusing them often led to awkward confrontations with customers, who didn't even know they were carrying fakes. Vending machines and parking meters became vulnerable points, often unable to tell genuine coins from forgeries. Transport networks, charity collections, and small businesses all felt the strain. Detection and response. Spotting a fake £1 coin required careful inspection. The edge lettering might be incorrect, missing, or upside down. The weight could be slightly off. The colour might tarnish unnaturally quickly. But these were subtle details, and most people simply didn't check. The Royal Mint and law enforcement ramped up operations against counterfeiters, raiding illegal mints and seizing thousands of forged blanks. Despite these efforts, the fakes kept coming. By the early 2010s, it was clear that the problem couldn't be solved by enforcement alone. The very design of the £1 coin needed to change radically. The solution would not be a tweak or an update. It would be a complete reinvention. And so, in 2017, Britain would witness the birth of a new pound coin. Unlike anything the nation had seen before, a coin engineered not just for value, but for survival.